How's it going, my evil residents? Today we'll be taking a look at your hot takes about one of the most popular Resident Evil characters, Chris Redfield. I'll be responding with my thoughts and ranking these on a scale I created based on the RE5 grenade launcher ammo types, going from nitrogen rounds for cold takes, flash rounds for surprising but pretty normal takes, electric rounds for somewhat shocking takes, flame rounds for a pretty average hot take, explosive rounds for super hot takes, and acid rounds for takes so hot they boiled off all of my skin. Remember, all these comments are just people's opinions, and my responses are also just an opinion, so please do be respectful to everyone who left comments you disagree with. If you want to see a second episode of this, please do let me know down below. If you have any other ideas for hot takes videos, also let me know, and feel free to share more hot takes down below in the comments. I'll be starting off with my members' hot takes. If you want to guarantee your hot take is featured, memberships start at just $1 singular, and if you want to leave two hot takes, or discuss them with other residents, there's a link to the Discord in the description. I won't waste any more of your time. Let's get right into the video. This hot take is from Max the Noodle. Chris is probably the weirdest and most inconsistent character in the franchise. He's been kinda consistent through 1 CoD Veronica Revelations and 5, but between 6 and 8 he was a roller coaster of emotions. I 1000% disagree with this. I think he is the most consistent character in the franchise. If we're talking voice actors, appearance, besides 7, if we're talking character arcs, personality, goals, everything, he has almost the same in every single Resident Evil game. It changes a little bit depending on the writer, but especially between CoD Veronica and 8, he's so consistent. He is so just understood by every Capcom writer, and they haven't really fucked him up. 7 was just kind of okay, but it didn't add or take away anything. He was still very much Chris. He just had a face people didn't like and a voice actor some people don't like that I'm totally fine with. So I don't get where you're coming from with this. You didn't give any reasons or anything, so I can't really respond to any of your reasoning for why you said this. And most of why I disagree with this, I've already said through the rest of the video. So I'm just going to give this in acid rounds to your take and move on. This next hot take is from Trans Failure, with a reply from Junin Wesker. He should be gay and marry Leon, and then Junin Wesker corrects it to Wesker. Look, I'm not out here shipping characters super often unless it's like a basically canon ship like Leon and Ada. That just makes sense. Otherwise, I'm not really a character shipper. However, Chris and Wesker have the most aggressive bromance in fiction. It's basically canon. They love each other so much. The he should be gay and marry Leon one is getting acid rounds, but the Wesker one is getting nitrogen rounds. That's just how it is. That's how it's gotta be. This hot take is from Agent Pendergast8899. Seems kind of a bad bro move not letting Claire know he was okay, which causes her to come to Raccoon City to see what's happening with him. I have no idea, and Chris knows Claire well enough to know that she wouldn't just accept the I'm on vacation right after one of the most traumatic moments of his life, that he would probably want to investigate. Since Claire knew about the mansion incident and then Chris just goes on vacation with no warning, that's not Chris. Chris would also want to investigate. She knew something was kind of up and he had been missing for I think 6 weeks, I think is the time frame. So I have no idea why he did this. However, I would like to take this opportunity to remind people that this is the same exact thing Chris did in Village. He has a pattern of not telling people things to protect them. It's a pattern of behavior with Chris. It's not out of character for him to do that in Village. I think this comes up in one of the other hot takes, but I just wanted to mention that it is very on brand for Chris to get people in trouble with his lack of communication. So I do agree that it is a bad bro move, and I think a lot of people do, especially if you connect that with how he behaves in Village. I agree it's a bad bro move, and I think a lot of people do, so unfortunately I'm going to put this in nitrogen rounds tier. This hot take is from Disabled Sean. I think I've mentioned this before, but I dislike that they changed his appearance again for 8. RE7 was basically a reboot of the series, so it was fine that his appearance was so different for 5 to 6 IMO. But then to change it back in Village to be closer to 5 to 6, talk about whiplash, especially considering Ethan talks about knowing this man for years and isn't even taking account that he sounds exactly the same as Carlos. There's so many confusing choices by Capcom here. TLDR, I prefer 7 Chris to 8. This is crazy, but I understand. As far as the face models go, I was never someone that was super bothered by the face model. I like making jokes about it because they're funny, like the Craig Bluefield jokes. So fucking funny. They're so good. I think people really reacted to the face model being so different because he's not square. Chris has always had a very square head, even in the original game. Obviously, it was a fucking pixelated ass square game. Of course, he's gonna have a square head, but he's just always been a very square guy. I think if you put 7 Chris next to CoD Veronica, there's some similarities, but then you get stuff like the nose and the brow that just don't line up, and it's still a completely different look for Chris. It's fine on its own, I guess, but in context with the other Chris looks, it's weird. And then backpedaling on it for 8 is funny. I do agree that it's funny that they immediately backpedaled on it, and we're just like, nope, never mind. Fun fact, it is the same face model. They just add more to him to make him look more like 5 and 6 Chris. It's the same face model. So, fun fact, yeah. My main complaint about 7 Chris is his outfit. He wears the same exact outfit as every other guy in the game, which I guess makes sense, but Chris has never done that, like, ever. He always has some unique outfit to set him apart as a main character, and they don't do that in 7 as in an effort to, like, ground the game, but I just think it's weird. And then I've already talked about Chris's voice actor in RE8. Not my favorite, no hate to the voice actor, but I do prefer RE7 Chris's voice actor as well. I'm going to put this one in Acid Rounds tier, because I hear nothing but complaints about RE7 Chris, and this guy's saying 7 Chris is better than 8 Chris. That's crazy. People, leave this guy alone. I know someone's going in the comments and bully this guy about this. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. Let the man enjoy Craig Bluefield. This hot take is from Lana's Vape Juice. They really should have built on his relationship with Piers more in 6. Like, there's so much potential wasted because all we think about is, grr, I'm tough guy, I punch big rock. I really don't think this is true at all. They do a lot to build their characters and relationships in that game with how little actual cutscene coverage there is in that game. I think there's about an hour and a half of Chris and Piers cutscenes, an hour to an hour and a half, which is not a lot of time to build a rapport with 2 characters that have been partners for, I think, a couple years by this point. And I think they do a really good job. I am 100% convinced that these 2 have each other's backs, even if they are constantly arguing and bickering with each other. Piers really does a good job of being a foil to Chris and grounding him and just kind of bringing him back to how he used to be after going through that whole issue in Edonia, while also working as someone for Chris to aspire to be, to gain his hope back and his optimism back. They work off of each other so well, and the writing does a really good job of that. It's one of the best bits of writing in Resident Evil 6. Of course I would want more of it. I'm not disagreeing with you that there should be more. This is one of the best parts of this game. Should have been like the main part of the game. It's the best part. However, saying there's like wasted potential with it and dismissing their dynamic down to, grr, I'm tough guy, I punch big rock, I think really downplays a lot of the work that was done in RE6 to make their dynamic and their relationship really good and really believable and really sad at the end. I don't know about you guys, but the end of Resident Evil 6 is probably, besides the end of RE8, the first time I played it, is one of the only Resident Evil moments that actively makes me tear up, that it's so sad. And that wouldn't happen if Chris's campaign didn't just do an incredible job of setting up these 2 characters together. I'm going to put this in Acid Rounds tier because I think most people that have played Resident Evil 6 know that the Chris and Piers relationship is really good, and it doesn't boil down to something this simple. So that's why I'm going to put this one in Acid Rounds tier. The next hot take is from Maytrue. Chris really should have told Ethan the plan in RE Village from the start. Ethan handled the entire Baker family in Biohazard, and they even gave him military training after. Chris should have known Ethan could at least handle himself, so I don't know why he wouldn't trust him. I hope you're having a wonderful day today, Starlight. Thank you, I hope you are as well. I'm going to be straight up with you though. This is not a hot take. This is literally a line in the game that one of the Houndwolf squad members says. I don't remember which one, because they all blend together in my brain because I don't like any of them and they're all boring and bland characters. But one of them says it. I don't remember which. It's right before the Modern Warfare 2019 section. I think the part that you're missing is Chris does know this, but he, as a character, is so afraid of losing people that he just pushes them away. Like, he didn't want Claire to get hurt in Raccoon City. In Resident Evil 2/CoD Veronica, pushed her away. Resident Evil 6, didn't want his squad to get hurt, pushed his squad away. Resident Evil 8 doesn't want Ethan to get hurt, pushes him away. It's a pattern of behavior for Chris. That's how he works. It makes sense for his character. Chris is 100% aware of this too. Chris knows that Claire can handle herself. Chris knows that well-trained BSAA agents can handle themselves. And Chris knows that Ethan can handle himself. But he just does not want them to get hurt. He is so afraid of losing people that he's not even going to take the chance. And in doing so, he takes a worse chance because he doesn't think it through. He's so blinded by his no, keep them away type thinking that it doesn't really connect with him that, oh, they might be safer if they have more information. But honestly, I'm sorry, I can't put this anything higher than nitrogen rounds. This is literally what most people say about this game. It's baked into the plot of the game. One of the characters says it. So I'm sorry, I cannot put this any higher. This hot take is from Ven Weasel. The boulder scene is funny / cool and all, but man, people ran that joke into the ground. It's no longer enjoyable anymore, especially when it's used as a criticism towards RE5. I feel like it's a disingenuous, a YouTuber said it, so I must say it thing now. I somewhat agree, mostly with the last part. I think boulder jokes are still a little funny. You gotta be more creative with them than just haha boulder punch. But I do agree that using it as a criticism of RE5 is weird when there's so many other, like, what people usually call this like a jump the shark moment for the series. No? Like what? How is this any more ridiculous than Leon doing a backflip off of a minecart and catching himself on like a 30-foot gap? How is this more ridiculous than Leon running from rolling boulders regularly? How is this more ridiculous than Leon and Ashley jumping down a trash chute and being 100% fine because they landed on their butt, despite the fact that they fell like very far down? It's just people say that this is so silly and stupid when Resident Evil 4 has lines like, ah, the big cheese. Forget the name, eh? A senior moment, perhaps. It's just, Resident Evil 4 is so fucking dumb, and I say that in the nicest possible way. I love Resident Evil 4 because of how fucking dumb it is. Resident Evil 5 is literally exactly as stupid as Resident Evil 4 is. The main plot of the game is just played a little more serious, so the stupid shit in the game just looks more stupid. That is why people think RE5 is more ridiculous, at least as far as I'm aware, and why it looks more ridiculous than 4, but the games are just as stupid as each other, at least that's my opinion on it. I will give him flame rounds though, because I do think the boulder scene is funny, and I think a lot of people still like that joke, and then boulder punch thing, a lot of people bring up negatively as a slant against the series still, so I'm going to put this in flame rounds tier. This hot take is from 1624 Mario. Chris is probably the weakest of the main characters in my opinion, since he doesn't particularly develop outside of, oh nor, my team and or my friend from this game died, I'm very sad. And while yes, it's cool for him to blow stuff up and right hook hunters, it gets old when that's all there is to him. There's a lot more to Chris than just he blows stuff up and punches hunters. I think, hear me out, I think you're thinking of Carlos. I think you're thinking of Carlos. Because what Carlos does is set off a bomb in a hospital and literally right hook hunters. There is no Resident Evil game where Chris can punch hunters. That is a thing he has never done on screen in a Resident Evil game. Chris has never right hooked a hunter. Carlos has. I think you're thinking of Carlos. I understand the mix-up, especially with Resident Evil 8 and Resident Evil 3 Remake, the voice actors. I get the mix-up. They're both very beefy, punchy men. I get it. But I'm sorry I'm not engaging with your hot take too much, but I really just think that you're, one, really boiling down Chris's character development and personality for the sake of a disingenuous argument, and mixing him up with Carlos. So I'm going to put this in explosive rounds tier, and yeah, sorry if this came off like condescending or whatever. I don't know how to engage with this, because I've kind of talked about what you said about his development already, and then the second part of it with blow stuff up and right hook hunters. It's really hard to engage with hot takes like this when there's not really reasons given. So I'm just gonna put this in explosive rounds and move on. The next hot take is from Demon King Kozar. Chris is better than Leon. Leon's games always have him simping for Ada. It really hinders his character when he'll just bend over backwards for this hot lady. It's the most egregious in 6. I think saying that Leon just simps for Ada in all his games is kind of diminishing of his character, especially if you're talking about Resident Evil 4, where most of the time, he's not even thinking about her. He's present maybe a couple times where she saves him. They have a couple of scenes, but the rest of the game, he is hard focused on saving Ashley, getting the Plaga out of them, and getting her out of there. That is his entire focus in that game. As soon as Ada's off screen, he does not think about her. He doesn't talk about her, especially in the original game. I think he has one time where he talks about her when she's not on screen, and it's when she just leaves the boat and he goes, "Women." So I don't really understand that. Resident Evil 2, I get it, but it's a different angle because she's manipulating him to specifically build up that romantic tension to get him to do what she wants. And in the remake, it's a different dynamic, but it's similar. And then in Resident Evil 6, of course he's trying to figure out what's actually going on, because this person that he knows would not do this, that still isn't a great person, is being framed for this horrific act of basically worldwide genocide. It's crazy, and of course he's gonna go out of his way to help her. That's what he does. He's trying to stop Simmons, and in doing that, is also helping Ada, because Ada is also involved. So I don't really know where this all Leon does is simp for Ada thing is coming from. Yeah, they have romantic tension, and they clearly have like an unspoken thing between them, but it is not the crux of Leon's character. It's more part of Ada's character than it is Leon's, but Leon has his PTSD from Raccoon City that he struggles with. He has his relationship with Ashley that he builds. He has whole operations with Krauser and in the CGI movies that he goes on. He has a weird back and forth with Maria in the CGI movies. Leon has a lot more going on than just simping for Ada, and I think breaking down Leon's character to he's just an Ada simp really ignores all of his other character traits for this one specific character trait. I'm not sure why you're doing that. A lot of people do this, and I don't get it at all. Leon is a very well-developed character for how little direct development he gets. It's really weird. But if you're just talking about Chris being better than Leon as character, I do still agree with you, but I don't agree with how much you are putting Leon in one specific box that he doesn't really fit into. So I'm going to put this in Flame Rounds tier. I know I've been putting a lot of these in Flame Rounds tier, but I think people that look at them as characters, as written characters, do think Chris is better than Leon, but I don't think that Leon is really this simple of a character. This next hot take is a pretty long one by Sir Six Strings, and it has a lot of evidence to go with it. It's a long read. If you want to skip the read and just skip to my opinion, use the time code on the screen. I'm going to leave his comment up the entire time I'm talking about it, like I did with all of them, so you can read it as I'm talking if you would like, and don't want to just hear me reading this super long hot take. Chris was justified in not telling Ethan the plan in RE8. Think about it. Chris's story had been incredibly tragic since the very first game. He's a leader who just wants to stop bioterrorism for the betterment of humanity, yet keeps witnessing the deaths of everyone from his best colleagues to his most wide-eyed recruits. The amount of survivor's guilt he must have is insane, and to the point where he starts drinking heavily to try and drown his guilt and memories as shown in RE6. Chris knows that Ethan, if given the chance, would go to the ends of the earth to save his daughter, and since Chris didn't know about Ethan's invincibility from the mold, Ethan seemed just as likely to die as everyone else he knew before. It may seem like a hard stance to take, considering Chris blatantly killed Mia and stole Rose, but I think that Chris not telling Ethan what was going on was out of good intention and isn't as dumb as it seems. Chris just didn't want to see another friend die getting involved in something he was leading. And by the way, the argument that he should have trusted Ethan because he knew that Ethan was skilled enough to kill the entire Baker family doesn't really hold up as well as people think. Chris has seen countless elite and veteran stars and BSAA members die for much less. So why would he take the chance by letting Ethan, a normal guy, go fight what was likely one of the biggest threats he'd seen? This is interesting. This is an interesting stance to take on the whole Chris is an idiot in Village thing that a lot of people complain about. I understand the complaints. I'm in a weird spot with this where I think it makes sense for his character to do this. It's on brand for Chris as a character, but the actual plan itself is horrifically stupid no matter how you break it down. Chris is completely justified in making this decision from a writing standpoint because he's made it before. He made it between Resident Evil 1 and Code Veronica with not telling Claire, and as he mentioned, all of his survivor's guilt from Resident Evil 5 and 6. it makes complete sense that he would make this decision. It's just not a good decision. There were many other very good ways to go about this. Chris and Ethan talked regularly between the events of 7 and 8, and as soon as Chris knew that Miranda was pretending to be Mia to get Rose, any small communication with Ethan of like, hey, do not make a thing of this, it's gonna blow everything up. Mia isn't Mia, get Rose out of there, I'm sending in my team to take down the person impersonating Mia. Ethan trusts Chris enough to be like, okay, got it, and then they can work together to solve this problem, and Chris can put Ethan in a position where he doesn't have to directly fight anyone, he's literally just getting Rose out of there, and then Chris and his team can take on Miranda. I think that makes complete sense, makes way more logical sense than invading his house, gunning down what he assumes to be his wife and stealing his baby, and then arresting him. It makes absolutely no fucking logical sense to do it that way. It makes sense in Chris's brain with how Chris's brain works and what he's been through. Yeah, that's fine. But saying that Chris was justified in doing this absolutely horrifically stupid plan, I don't think is quite right. I don't think justified is the right word. If you're arguing that it makes sense for Chris to do this, okay, I 100% agree with you. But saying that the plan is justified or that this was a good decision by Chris is just not true. Because if you look at what happened because of this decision, that entire village and Ethan died. They all died because of this decision by Chris. If Chris had communicated with Ethan, maybe they could have saved some people in the village. Maybe Ethan wouldn't have died. Obviously, we won't 100% know because that version of the game doesn't exist. But saying that this plan, this horrible plan that actively got people killed was a justified plan, I don't think is fair. There are very clear different ways to go about it. I am going to put this one in explosive rounds tier though, because it is it's pretty good. It's a pretty hot, pretty spicy take. I don't think it's quite up there because I've seen some other Chris defenders in Village, and I do also somewhat agree with it under the grounds of Chris would do this as a character. I just don't think the actual plan was justified, which is what this seems to be saying. This hot take is from Zazafe3101. Chris Redfield's story should have probably ended with Resident Evil 5 or 6. I actually think in general, a lot of the core characters in Resident Evil should be starting to get replaced with new characters. He would be 50 as of 2025. As much as he is a core character, I think it's time to move on or put him in the background. I've always been someone that stands by the opinion that Chris's arc ended in Resident Evil 6, and he probably, to be totally honest, should have died in Resident Evil 6 instead of Piers, and Piers should have been the character to be a carry forward. I don't know why they didn't do that. They were setting it up, and then they blindside you with Piers's death. Yeah, it would have made the plot a little more predictable, but we knew one of them was going to die. We knew one of them wasn't going to make it out because of how, especially that last chapter, is paced and set up with Chris being like, I want you to take my place. Once we get out of here, it's like, okay, one of them's not making it out. And I really think it should have been Chris making the sacrifice play, but that's my thoughts on that. I 100% agree with this person. I don't really see too many people bring this up, so I'm not sure how hot of a take it is. So I'm going to put this in Flame Rounds tier about right in the middle. This hot take is from Row8213. It's not bad storytelling for Chris not talking to Ethan about his plan in RE8. He's just horrible at communication, and that's kind of been established as always being his downfall. Also, I don't know if this is a hot take or just something that no one really cares about, but his voice in RE7 is second best to RCS. It sounds like him, but isn't trying to copy him and make him sound like Carlos in RE8 was weird AF. Preach this from the rooftops, my friend. Please. This is so accurate. Thank you. Yeah, it's just Chris's character to be shitty at communication. He's always been shitty at communication, even down to Resident Evil 1. He does not communicate with Jill or anyone before getting captured by Wesker. He just kind of runs off somewhere else. And it's hilarious. In Code Veronica, he's bad at it. In 5, he's even kind of bad at it there because they just go on their own rogue mission and doesn't really communicate with people unless they communicate with him to help him. Resident Evil 6, he's still kind of bad at it. Resident Evil 7, I think he's best at it in Resident Evil 7. Honestly, that's where he's at his best. But even then, he's like, no, I'm going to do this alone. Nobody else needs to get hurt. We got a pretty good Lucas. And then in RE8, obviously, That's a popular one. But yeah, I know I've been harping on this point a lot, but it's just a very interesting talking point of being like, yeah, Chris was so stupid to do this. It's like, yeah, that's his character. He's always done this. That's what he does. As for the voice actor thing, I do agree with you. I really like his RE7 voice actor. Of course, I'm always going to love Roger Craig Smith. He's the GOAT. He's the best Chris actor. No shade to the guy who voices Chris in RE8 and Carlos in RE3R. He's so good as Carlos. He's a great voice actor. I don't think he's quite the right fit for Chris. One, it's weird having back-to-back games, having two different characters sound exactly alike. It's odd, and I don't like it. It works with Neil Newbon and Nikolai and Heisenberg because he's doing completely different voices. But Carlos and Chris just sound way too similar, and it's weird. And Carlos's voice coming out of Chris, it doesn't gel. It doesn't work for me. No hate to the voice actor, he did a great job. I just don't think it was the best casting in the world. I'm going to put this one in explosive rounds tier. Not quite flash rounds tier, but it gets a little bit of a bump because I agree with it, I'll be honest. But yeah, I'm putting this one in explosive rounds tier. This hot take is from Lindsay Nelson. I think Chris Redfield is overrated. I know that he is greatly loved, but that's not why he is overrated. I think that his character is a little underwhelming and kind of cliche. I get what you mean with him being cliche. He is the most typical of an archetype of all the Resident Evil characters. Most of the other ones are either a little more unique or a little less derivative of... I think the main thing Chris suffers from is being in a lot of action-oriented games. He's in CoD Veronica, which has more action than most of the other top-down games. He's in CoD Veronica, which has more action than most of the fixed camera games, besides Resident Evil 3. He's the main character in 5 and 6, the most action-packed games in the series, and his DLC in Resident Evil 7 is pretty action-packed, and then Resident Evil 8, he literally has a Modern Warfare 2019 shootout section. So I think a lot of the environments he gets put in really affect how cliche he feels, because some of the most cliche parts of the franchise with the super typical action stuff that the series gets into sometimes always is around Chris. Leon, less to an extent, but Leon falls into a different kind of cliche that's not as common, whereas Chris, unfortunately, just due to the environment that Capcom always writes him in, always falls into default action guy. I think we need to put Chris back in a horror setting one more time before they retire the character to really fix this. So honestly, I get what Lindsay is saying here. I 100% understand. I don't think he's overrated necessarily because he has a lot of really great character qualities. But what she's saying about him being kind of cliche and a little bit underwhelming, I get it. I understand. So I'm going to put this again in flame rounds tier as kind of a middle ground because I don't think he's overrated, and I think there's like an equal camp of people that think he's over or underrated or just don't care. But him being cliche is also kind of in that range, so I'm just going to put this right in the middle in flame rounds tier. This hot take is from Ethan Winters RE7. People who hate on Sheva because of her AI are stupid because Chris would act the same if they're playing as Sheva. I'm including this just because it's a fact. Like, I don't want to say maybe not stupid, because the game doesn't tell you that they behave different or the same or either way, but maybe just like ignorant of this just straight up fact, like saying Sheva sucks as a character because her AI sucks. It's like Chris has the same AI if you play as Sheva. They act just as stupid. So this barely counts as being a Chris hot take because he brings up Sheva more than Chris, but I just wanted to mention it here because it's funny. I'm going to put this in flash rounds tier. It's not that serious. It's mostly just funny, but I do think most people by now are aware of this and they just call it Sheva AI because most people play as Chris most of the time. Even I call it Sheva AI. But yeah, I think most people are aware of this by now, but newer players or people who have played the game once are like, Sheva's so stupid, her AI sucks. It's like, eh. The next hot take is from Anti-PWO Agent. I actually like how Chris is utilized in RE6 and 8. I think it's his inclusion in RE7 that muddies the overall arc. I don't think it really muddies the arc, it more so just doesn't really add or take away from anything, and it hasn't been built on since. So it just kind of feels random to throw in there. I pray every single night that Capcom actually adds to the plot with the connections, Blue Umbrella, and the BSAA and RE9, because they did not touch on it basically at all in Resident Evil 8, and it pisses me off because it's this massive hanging thread that affects all the BSAA members. It affects Chris, it affects Jill, it affects Rebecca, it affects Barry, it affects all these people, it affects all these main characters, and they just have done fuck all with it, and I don't understand it. It's such an interesting plot line, it's an interesting way to take the series. It's like this thing that Chris and Jill spent years building from the ground up is now corrupted, and they are now being shoved out of it. And there's this other new secret organization that's separate from the organization that Wesker started, and nobody knows where it came from. And it's so interesting. And Capcom has done nothing with it. Capcom, if you're listening, John Capcom, please elaborate on this in Resident Evil 9. I beg you. Anyway, I know I got off track there, but I sort of agree. Not that it muddies his arc, but that it doesn't add anything to his character really. All it really says is, I don't trust people I'm working for, which is the same thing that RE8 says, just in a swamp instead of in a Minecraft snow biome. So I'm gonna give this a Flash Rounds tier, because I think most people just don't really think about his inclusion in 7, they just kind of put it aside. So I think most people just don't have an opinion on this, so I'm gonna put it in Flash Rounds. The last hot take is from Labor Day Lobster. Chris's DLC, Not a Hero, in RE7 is the best Chris campaign in any of the games, not including RE5 since he's there start to finish. Honestly, I'm tempted to agree from a gameplay standpoint, but I don't know. I'm someone that likes RE6, so I think by default it goes in like 3rd place, but I also really like Resident Evil 1 and Resident Evil 1 Remake, and I like Chris in those games, and I like Chris in Code Veronica, and Chris doesn't really have that much to do in Not a Hero, so I think it just falls closer to the bottom just by default of it being a DLC and him not really having much character building going on in that. I want to put it higher, but I just can't, looking at how much I like other stuff Chris has been in, so this one's tough. I'm going to put this in Explosive Rounds tier because I know a lot of people like Not a Hero. People were begging for this to come out when it came out, and when it did come out, people were like, this is pretty good. I like this. This is great. As far as gameplay, I love Not a Hero. As far as story, I really like Not a Hero. I think they could have done a little more with the story, but hey, I'm fine with it. It's really good. Saying it's the best, though, that's what gets this in Explosive Rounds tier. Anyways, that's going to do it for the video. I hope y'all enjoyed the hot takes. If you have a hot take that you would like to leave that wasn't in this video, or you'd like to respond to one respectfully, please do in the comments. Would love to hear from you. Let's get an epic dialogue going. If you want to add more to your hot take because I either didn't understand it right or you want to give some extra reasoning, go for it. I'd love to hear more about what you have to say. We do have a Discord if you want to discuss this over there with other residents. I do have channel memberships if you'd like to have your hot take guaranteed to be included in the video. Feel free to become a member. It's only $1. Supports me directly and supports the channel. I do also have merch in the form of pins on my Etsy page if you would like to have some sort of channel merch. I'm not doing like shirts or stuff like that to like nickel and dime y'all to death. But if you want a pin of the channel logo or something, that's there for you. Shout out to all my members. Thank you very much for your support. Shout out to my harmless residents scrolling on the screen now. A special shout out to my nefarious residents, One's One Up, Evil Resident, and the Epic Rager. And a super extra mega special shout out to my malevolent residents, Donna Dracula TTV, Mark Maidens, Aircrom Cromer, and a Dark Trooper. Thank you very much for watching, all of you. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Let me know what hot takes video you'd like to see next, and yeah, stay evil, my residents.